All right, let's jump right into this incredibly fascinating explainer on how a simple, everyday piece of furniture literally became a viral gauge for relationship health. We live in an era where super complex interpersonal dynamics are constantly being distilled into these catchy, bite-sized frameworks online. But today, well, we're looking at one that actually holds a surprising amount of heavy psychological weight. It's called the chair theory, and it's this wild concept that touches on absolutely everything, from digital dating culture all the way to deep-rooted psychotherapeutic practices. So here's the quick rundown of what we're covering today. First, the viral phenomenon. Second, emotional seating. Third, mates and friends. Fourth, the triad of tests. And finally, the clinical roots and warnings.
Okay, moving right into part one, the viral phenomenon and its socio-digital genesis.
So this modern take on the theory was actually popularized by a digital creator named Nardos Mesfin. And the core premise is honestly brilliantly simple. Just imagine this. You walk into a room, right? You're exhausted, maybe you're carrying a bunch of heavy things, you're overwhelmed, or you're just clearly in need of some support. What happens next? Do the people already in the room proactively make space for you? Like, do they immediately pull up a chair? Or do you have to awkwardly ask for permission just to belong? According to this theory, that split-second instantaneous reaction reveals the true nature of your bond and exactly how they value you.
What's really wild is how these spatial metaphors map directly onto real human behaviors. Think about the table. That represents your true inner circle, like actual, genuine inclusion. And the chair, that's proactive support, which is really the ultimate sign of respect. But then contrast that with hovering. Hovering basically means you feel like a burden. Your behavioral marker is just waiting around for permission to speak. And the absolute worst relational imbalance is asking for a chair. Because if you have to ask for a seat at the table, you're essentially begging for the bare minimum of effort. It screams that there's a total lack of planning or care on their part.
Let's shift gears to part two, emotional seating and allocation errors.
You might have heard of evolutionary anthropologist Robin Dunbar's circles of intimacy. It suggests we have strict, hardwired cognitive limits on the number of stable relationships we can actually maintain. Well, it's the exact same concept here. We only have so many chairs in our emotional seating plan. Your absolute core is reserved for deep emotional intimacy. Those are your primary attachment figures. Then, the next ring out is for trust and influence, which has to be earned through consistent integrity. And the outer ring, that's just for daily presence. The reality is, you simply do not have an infinite number of VIP seats to give away.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that a massive amount of our relational pain comes from what we can call misassigned chairs. This is when you give a VIP seat, like deep, deep emotional access, to someone who has only ever shown you surface-level consistency. Chair theory aligns perfectly with social penetration theory on this. Seats absolutely have to be earned through observable behavioral patterns, not just empty promises. When you finally embrace the scarcity of your emotional seating, your self-worth naturally goes up. You start to realize that an empty chair is actually way safer than letting the wrong person sit there and block someone incredible from entering your life.
Up next, part three, mates and friends, diving into both the romantic and the platonic side of things. Let's tackle the romantic side first. Looking at this through an evolutionary psychology lens, a partner's genuine interest is proven by their effort to build a sturdy chair. That's a high-value mate. They give you consistent, proactive effort, and they actually make your life lighter. But on the flip side, you have the dreaded wobbly chair. This is your low-value mate who offers nothing but breadcrumbing and those annoying you-up convenience texts. Instead of making your life lighter, a wobbly chair creates this massive, exhausting burden of emotional labor, where you're constantly trying to prop up the seat just to keep the relationship from collapsing. And here's the thing, this isn't just some abstract metaphor. It builds into a literal physiological reality in your body. It is a measurable stressor. When the heavy boulder of your emotional labor drastically outweighs the feather-light support you're getting from your partner, your stress just skyrockets. Your cortisol spikes right along with it. If you force yourself to sit in a wobbly chair for too long, you eventually experience amplified depression, and you genuinely start to feel shrunken by the relationship.
But hey, this isn't exclusively about dating. In friendships, this misallocation shows up as what the theory calls the platonic sting. Oh man, it is that quiet, gut punch of a moment when you realize you are treating a friend like an absolute VIP, and they're treating your presence like a mild inconvenience. In a truly balanced friendship, someone pulls up a chair for you without even thinking about it. If you wake up one day and realize you're always the one initiating, always the one just hovering on the edge of the group chat, well, you are sitting at the wrong table.
All right, moving into part 4, the triad of tests and relational diagnostics.
Now, you've probably seen other viral relationship tests floating around the internet. There's the Gottman Institute's famous BIRD test, which is strictly observational. It's just checking if your partner turns toward your bids for connection, like if you point out a cool bird outside. Then you've got the orange peel theory. That's an active test, where you ask your partner to do a tiny act of service, like peeling an orange, just to see if they'll happily do it. But chair theory is a completely different animal. It gives us a lens entirely focused on proactive hospitality. It's not about how they react when you ask, it's about what they do before you even have to say a word.
Which brings us to our final section, part 5, clinical roots and cautions. To really get why this concept has struck such a chord with millions of people, we have to zoom way, way out and look at the profound philosophical history of this metaphor. From a semiotic standpoint, a chair isn't just wood and fabric. It is a deeply historical signifier of human intention. As researcher Trevor Kaiser Aldred points out, a chair signals hospitality. It says, I made space for you. Think about this beautiful example from the research. A husband who always called ahead to restaurants to make sure they reserved an extra chair, just so his partner's son would never ever feel like an afterthought. That right there, that is the profound communicative power of a simple seat. And clinically speaking, this spatial metaphor is not new. Therapists have been using it for decades. It traces all the way back to Fritz Perls and Gestalt therapy. Therapists use the physical empty chair technique to help clients process really heavy, unresolved trauma. Basically, by talking out loud to an empty chair that represents a neglectful parent or an ex, clients can mentalize empathy and resolve deep emotional baggage. There's also the two-chair technique, where you physically switch seats to resolve internal conflicts by embodying different parts of your own mind. Over time, this evolved into an amazing tool communication experts call the three-chair method. It's this incredibly effective conflict resolution framework that forces you to physically and mentally shift your perspective. So you start in the first chair. That's your own biased viewpoint. Then you literally move to the second chair, where you actively try to channel the other person's inner state. And finally, you move to the third chair, zooming way out to act as a totally impartial observer. It just goes to show how intimately tied our psychological processing is to our physical positioning in a room. This dynamic is so universal that even corporate management theorists use it. Have you ever heard of the spinning chair concept? It perfectly describes those completely absent leaders who only care about their own comfort. They do the absolute bare minimum required purely so they can get right back to, quote, spinning in their chair. It leaves the team with zero oversight, and honestly, it perfectly mirrors that romantic wobbly chair we talked about earlier. When someone fails to provide stability, it leaves everyone else stressed out and totally unsupported. But hold on a second. Before we all start aggressively analyzing our friends and partners every single time they forget to pull out a chair for us, we really need to pause. We have to ask a critical reality check question here. Is there a danger in relying so heavily on these viral internet metrics? Like, are we just pathologizing perfectly normal human distraction? Well, therapists are actually raising a giant caution flag here. First off, they warn that we have to distinguish manners from actual character. Someone might smoothly pull out a chair for you just because they've curated a really polite public image, not because they genuinely care about your soul. And conversely, a deeply loving partner might forget to offer a seat simply because they're tired or distracted, not because they're malicious. Plus, constantly micro-testing the people in your life can deeply erode trust. It keeps everyone perpetually on edge. The experts are super clear on this. You need a whole picture approach. One single sit test is never going to replace the value of watching someone's genuine character and consistency over a long period of time. Ultimately, whether you're looking at this through the lens of a viral TikTok, evolutionary psychology, or clinical Gestalt therapy, the final takeaway is profoundly internal. True relational intelligence, it means building your own self-sufficiency. You have to learn how to be your own chair. Because when you build up your own confidence and security, you become totally immune to the sting of not being offered a seat at someone else's table. So I want to leave you with this to chew on today. Take a good, hard look at the room of your life right now. Who is currently occupying your VIP seats? And in your rush to accommodate everyone else, have you accidentally left yourself standing?